Kia ora koutou. E whakawhitai ana mo tēnei wā. E whakamaumahara i ngā taonga, tukuwuhu ngā maunga, ngā awa, ngā moana, ngā rākau, ngā manu. He tiritiri mō tātou katoa, tātou wairoa te hangatanga tukotahi. Kia mahi tahi ai mo te ahau, tino parawa, hui e, tā ki e. Mōrena, welcome along. Ka mihi au ki a Ngāti Whātua Ōraki, te mana whenua. Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to our event today. My name is Stephen Lethbridge and I'm one of the trustees of the Aotearoa Educators Collective and also, I think more recently, a part-time principal at Point Chevalier School, Rangimatarau. At least I think that's what the deputy principals will be saying at the moment. And I've got the privilege of just trying to keep us all to time and introduce a few people and maybe set a bit of the scene. But before we start, just a little bit of housekeeping. The bathrooms, if you haven't worked out where they are, there's no hope for you, but they're out there somewhere, okay? Just look left and right. And if in the event of an emergency, Tani at the back here, wave, that's it. We just follow her and we move as quickly as she does. So if she is running out of here screaming, you make sure you are running out of here pretty quickly. But if she's walking in an orderly fashion, just follow suit. And just a reminder, phone use is fantastic and encouraged because it's a great note-taking tool. Just make sure it's on silent. That might be good. So if anyone needs a lesson, there are some young people in the room. Don't annoy them. Just use some agency and find out how to mute your phone. So let's get underway. So the scene setting. Now, unlike, I usually try and talk without a script, but I've written a few things down because I was a little worried about what I might say today. So I'm going to try and keep to a script, which might be fitting. So this morning we launch a vision for education in Aotearoa, New Zealand, on behalf of the Aotearoa Educators Collective. This report grew from a concern across our collective that education reform in this country has too often been driven by short-term political priorities rather than a clear, enduring understanding and vision of what education is actually for. So let me give you a sense of what it's actually looking like on the ground. I started teaching with the New Zealand curriculum framework in the 90s, where I know. We had a curriculum document released each year from 1992 through to 2000. It reduced teaching to tick box coverage. As a young teacher, I put a dot, a double dot, or 3 dots, or a dash. Everyone was inconsistent around how we do that. Actually, if I'm honest, that's just what I taught and covered. I didn't really know if they actually got it. It was then followed by the New Zealand curriculum, in 2007 that foregrounded, thankfully, key competencies that permeate the learning areas. And just as we were getting to grips with that, national standards were bolted on in 2010 and effectively became the curriculum. After 9 years, we had the curriculum refresh. That ran from roughly 2019 through to 2023, giving us Te Mataiaho. Then came a fresh round of reviews in structured literacy and structured maths, even though I don't think structured maths is actually a thing, but there we go, we had structured maths, and that was from 2023. The English curriculum has been rewritten twice in barely 2 years, and the maths curriculum has followed a similar path. We've also had the great rebalancing of the Aotearoa New Zealand Histories curriculum. 30 years of moving from coverage to freedom to prescription to mandated pedagogical approaches. from filling vessels with knowledge to growing key competencies to being at, above or below expectation, to developing agentic learners, acknowledging cultural competencies, and on to the latest knowledge-rich approach. And let's not even mention the qualifications framework roller coaster that is happening and has happened in that time. That may just be too traumatic for some people in this room, and foo-foo valves may be blown. Let us be clear. This is not a criticism of any one government. Every side of politics has taken its turn at the wheel. It's simply the pattern. A system lurching from review to reform to refresh every 6 to 9 years, often before the last change has even had time to bed in. And our profession is telling us loudly what that costs. School principal surveys have shown 73% of our school leaders are likely to leave the profession within 5 years because of the workload and well-being toll. Our teachers fare no better. This year's PPTA staffing survey found that almost a quarter of secondary teaching vacancies attracted no suitable applicants, and just under a third only had one suitable applicant. Nearly half of schools now have untrained people in front of classes, simply because schools cannot find qualified teachers. That is the backdrop that this report responds to. Not abstract policy debate, but real schools, real teachers, real children, absorbing the cost of a system that keeps swinging from one extreme to the other. What we present today illuminates the unique story we want to tell as Aotearoa New Zealand, one designed to restore stability, rebuild professional trust, that trust in teachers, and make sure every learner can thrive. The report sets out 5 ambitions. Rather than argue over individual policies, this work steps back and asks a different question. What are the characteristics of a system that actually lets people flourish? Structured enough to guarantee quality and equity, resourced well enough to deliver it, flexible enough to recognise that different learners and different communities need different things, not one model of schooling imposed on everyone, but a strong public system capable of responding well to everyone. So that's the scene. And now we're going to get on to actually what's in this report that we've commissioned. And in order to introduce our author, I'm calling on a legend. A legend of Aotearoa New Zealand, Dr. Rose Hipkins, who has been our critical friend throughout the construction of this report work. For more than 2 decades, Rose has been one of the sharpest minds shaping how this country thinks about curriculum and assessment. Her research has influenced generations of teachers. It's influenced their understanding of what good teaching looks like and what good learning looks like. In 2019, her impact was recognised, becoming a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to science education. Rose retired this year from the New Zealand Council for Educational Research, and we are lucky that that retirement isn't slowing her down. Please join with me in welcoming Dr. Rose Hipkins.
Kia ora koutou katoa, I whana mai au I waitara, I roto I te rohi o te Aotearoa, no Koutarana o Kutupuna, ko Rosemary Hipkins toko ingoa. Very abbreviated form of my mihi, which I carefully constructed with the help of my Māori colleagues at NZCER, because I wanted to claim my very strong emotional affiliation with Taranaki Maunga, but I can't claim that in quite the same way that the tangata whenua can. But I was born and grew up in the small Taranaki town of Waitara, proud pupil of Waitara High School, which, did we still have the decile system, would be a decile 1 school. And here I am. I know it's a bit fashionable to claim grew up in adversity and look at me, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do that. I just want to me to the power of a genuinely public and equitable education system. And, you know, quite often just lately, I find myself with the chorus line of that song, Big Yellow Taxi, in my head. You know how it goes, don't you know? Yeah, what you've got. You don't know what you've got till it's gone. Yeah. And so when I was asked to support Claire to work on this report, I very gladly said yes. Stephen, I'll see your 1990s and up. My first year of teaching was 1970. So I've... Yes, well, I have a couple of sons too. Now that I'm retired, I can pick and choose what I work on, and I was very glad to support this project. I had never met Claire in person, and in fact didn't meet her in person until we were about halfway through the work. And this occasion here is only the second time we physically been in the same place at the same time, but I am in awe of her abilities, because she gamely took on this huge job to write a literature-informed piece that defended, in a way, the AEC's values. Now, that could have been an encyclopedia, because there is so much research across that sweep of the values. But this had to be a punchy piece that would be readable for busy professionals who are, we know, many feeling overwhelmed. So I was very glad to be a sounding board for Claire when she did that. Across the years that I've been working with a higher profile than in my early years of my career, I often tell people that I'm a Pollyanna. Because I believe that we can do more, do better, keep our system moving forward. I was just showing this to Claire. This is what I was reading on the plane. It's a library book. I might have to go and buy it. It's written by an American essayist called Rebecca Solnit, and it's called No Straight Road Takes You There. And the kind of the key message in here is that even when there are setbacks along the way, still we are making progress and moving forward with our system. And one of the things that she illustrates over and again in different contexts in her essays in this book is that once that spark of imagination is out there in the ethos, there's no quelching it, no matter what politicians do. It can be pushed down, but it's still there. And she urges us to take the long view. And that's what a vision does, isn't it? It takes the long view. And so that's what Rebecca is... Claire. Claire is going to talk to you about now. She's a teacher and entrepreneur, and I think, as you will see when she speaks to you, I really admire her passion, her focus on the engagement of our young people in meaningful learning and in a public education system that can deliver those things for our young people regardless of where they go to school. So, Claire, it's really is my pleasure to hand over to her to take it away.
Thanks, India, for the microphone. Thank you.
Right, I'm going to take my shoes off. Sorry, always a drama teacher. Okay, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko rarangi te whakapāparanga mai. Ko tamiki makaurau te whenua tupu. Ko waikato te kaianga. Ko Claire Coleman toku ingoa. Morning, everybody. Welcome. Yeah. Look, we got it. Shiny. Thank you for everyone for being here today. As Rose mentioned, I've been knocking around in education for quite some time as well, in various capacities. I've been a primary school teacher, secondary school teacher, an ITE academic. I worked briefly for my sins at the Ministry of Education. And while the contexts have changed and the roles have changed, and education itself has changed quite a bit in that time, the one thing that's remained constant for me is keeping our tamariki at the heart and the centre of all my work. I'm going to be tearful. Children and young people are the best, right? I much prefer them to adults. They are curious, they are creative, they are inclusive, they are energetic, they are thoughtful, and sometimes terribly honest, to a fault. They ask the questions that adults sometimes forget to ask, or maybe, didn't know to ask. They challenge our assumptions, they find the joy, they see the possibilities, and they imagine all kinds of wild and wonderful things. So I can continue to be inspired by them. They keep me on my toes, they keep me hopeful, and I consider it an enormous privilege to work with, alongside, and for the young people of Aotearoa. And while it may sound a little sentimental and perhaps even a little 80s power ballad, I do believe that children are our future. So when writing this report, I kept those children, those tamariki, at front of mind. So this report invites us to imagine the kind of education system that will best support young people to thrive both now and into the future, and invites us to think about what we can build together, drawing on the strengths, knowledges, values, and aspirations that make Aotearoa New Zealand unique. Let's see if my clicker works. Oh, look at that. So, over the past wee while, as both Rose and Stephen talked about, education in Aotearoa has really evolved. Things have changed. And these developments have opened up lots of conversation about what we value in education and how we can best support our learners. This report aims to contribute to that conversation by offering that long-term vision that brings together thinking around curriculum, assessment, professional learning, leadership, and community engagement. It's not a recipe, it's not a directive. We haven't made all the decisions about something. It is an invitation to imagine what might be. It proceeds with an awareness of our need to move beyond kind of surface levels of inclusion, to recognise mātauranga Māori as a living and valued knowledge system integral to learning. As tangata tiriti, that commitment amongst AEC runs deep. And while it became clear that through the process of this report, obviously me as tangata tiriti can't speak to that, there is more work to do in terms of those partnerships. We wanted to get going, well aware that we will be doing more of that. So the findings and the thoughts presented here will, I'm sure, be built on, refined, and those meaningful partnership conversations will still be to come. It asks us an important question. What kind of education system do we want the future generations of our young people to experience? And click 2. So the vision is organised around 5 interconnected ambitions. They are in no particular order. And they describe this education system that is coherent, inclusive, responsive, and deeply connected to our unique context. I'll give you all a moment just to quickly. And now I'm going to move through and talk to each one briefly. Te Tiria Waitangi established an ongoing relationship between Crown and Māori, founded in the 4 Articles: honourable governance, kawanatanga, rangatiratanga, Māori agency and self-determination, oretitanga, equity, and cultural religious freedoms, that spoken promise. They form a foundation of a bicultural curriculum that reflects that relationship that should be between tangata whenua and the mainstream system that we operate in currently as tangata tiriti. And it's central to thinking about how education is designed, delivered, and experienced. This report envisages a learning environment where te reo Māori, tikanga Māori, and mātanga Māori are woven naturally into education experiences, where te tiriti o Waitangi is fully realised. It's not about just kind of simple bits of tacking things on. It's creating opportunities for all of our learners to engage with the distinctive histories, cultures, languages, and knowledge systems that make Aotearoa unique. This ambition is founded on partnership, belonging, and connection to place. It recognises that learning is more meaningful when it reflects the people, communities, and histories that surround us. A bicultural approach supports a curriculum that is coherent, future-focused, and connected to community, ensuring that young people can contribute to communities and navigate an increasingly complex and interconnected world. I have to make a little aside comment here. A couple of weeks ago in a school that I was working in, a beautiful moment with children from Russia, Zimbabwe, Somalia, Tonga, Cook Island Māori, New Zealand European children, all speaking te reo, all doing karakia, all really keen to join in and do that as a group of children in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Really, embodying that entire principle. Increasing equity of outcomes, ambition, the next one. Every learner deserves a system designed to support their success. This report encourages us to think about how education systems create conditions that enable all of our learners to flourish, recognising the diverse strengths, identities, experiences, and aspirations that they bring with them. Equity requires an ongoing commitment to designing learning, assessment, support, and leadership structures that work together so every young person can reach their potential. Education systems that shape long-term social, economic, and civic outcomes. Education systems do those things. And equity is a key indicator of whether public education systems are fulfilling that purpose. At its heart, this ambition is a strengths-based view of our learners, one that values differences and sees diversity as something that enriches our learning communities. Broadening our curriculum. The next ambition is about creating learning experiences that support all of the human. Education should help our young people develop their knowledge, their knowledge activation, not just an acquisition, their understandings around the world, their creativity, their critical thinking, their cultural understanding, their well-being, their adaptability, their purpose. A broad curriculum connects learning across disciplines and helps students understand how those things fit together. It encourages deep learning, meaningful connections, and opportunities for young people to engage with real-world issues while developing the capabilities they will need in an increasingly complex world. I always think it's strange when people talk about school as being a preparation for something. Like, that is their life. That is why are we preparing them for some strange, that is the world they live in. Broadening the curriculum matters because education systems are not just concerned with what learners know, they shape who they are becoming and who they might be in the world, and the world they are going to make. So broadening our curriculum will create richer opportunities for learning and growth. Professionalising our teachers. This next ambition recognises the critical role, but they're not the only ones, that teachers play in shaping educational experiences. Teachers are highly skilled professionals. They bring expertise, judgment, and deep knowledge of learners and communities to their work every day. The best ones are what I would call an embodied intellectual. They are carrying it around, they are doing it, they are agile, they are adaptive, they are reflective. They know their profession and their students deeply. And for those of you that are teachers in the room, you're constantly thinking about those students, right? You're carrying them around and what's going on all the time. It's vital that across the system we build and maintain trust. we work collaboratively, and we provide ongoing professional learning to support teachers to respond effectively to the needs of their learners. When teachers are empowered to learn, inquire, innovate, and work together, the benefits extend directly to students and communities. This vision is one of a confident profession that continues to grow, reflect, and contribute. Reprofessionalising teachers is central to equity and the long-term strength of the system, strengthening teachers' capacity to recognise and respond to who learners are. Building our shared understanding. The final, but again, not in any particular order, ambition is building an understanding of what education is and that it is a shared endeavour. It connects learners, whānau, communities, educators, iwi, and society more broadly. When communities understand that the wider purposes of education, opportunities for really meaningful partnerships will grow. Learning becomes more connected to local contexts, students can see greater relevance in what they are learning, and communities become active contributors to educational success. It reminds us that education is not just something that teachers at school should do alone, in isolation, in this foreign, funny place. It's something that we create together. Education shapes not just what students know, but how they can show up in the world. Yet again, children, the future. So as you can see, there are several themes that kind of connected this vision as a whole. Te Tiriti Waitangi is our foundation. Thinking about partnerships and relationships at the centre. Recognising and valuing multiple knowledge systems. Viewing education as a collective responsibility. And understanding success broadly. Thinking about well-being, belonging, identity, achievement, participation, purpose, contribution. And as Rose and Steve both talked about, this is a long-term project, right? This is not a silver bullet. I mean, if there was just one thing and we could put it in and damn, 5 years later, all be sorted, fabulous. It's not how it works. It's really, really complicated. And it will take time for those systems to bed in, for those processes to filter through. And that's something that I think is really important to recognise. This is not going to be something that happens overnight, but hopefully it will happen. So this comes together as this vision that is coherent and aspirational. All right, there's the QR code so you can access the report. Everyone turns to their phones. So what does it look like? What might we imagine? This is your internal drama moment now, everybody. Thinking about your imaginations. In our classrooms, learning would be responsive, connected, and meaningful. Children and young people would have their ideas honoured, their curiosity nurtured, their identities affirmed. In schools, leadership would be collaborative and trust-based. Principals, teachers, and other school staff would listen, tackle challenges together, and make their own unique contribution to shared goals. Across the wider system, policies, funding, assessment, professional learning would uphold Te Tiriti Waitangi, coordinate all of the services and work as a unified network to support learner flourishing. At its heart, this relational community-focused vision centres the flourishing of every learner across all aspects of their life. And isn't that why we're all here and we got into this gig in the first place? So let's revel in this joyful imagining, and let's take this vision and make it so much more. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. And now back to Stephen.
Indeed, I think actually it's back to Claire.
Oh, and now back to Claire.
Before I get on to the next part, can we just have another round of applause for Claire and the work that she has put into this? She had a bloody difficult action group to work with that were very demanding and navigated it with aplomb. It is now my absolute pleasure. So first of all, ko Claire Amos toko inga taumoaki o kahu kura mātua. My name is Claire Amos and I have the absolute privilege of being the principal of Albany Senior High School and also one of the members of the Aotearoa Educators Collective Action Group. It is my privilege this morning to also welcome an international friend who is going to appear like magic on the big screen in just a moment. Mr. Anthony Mackay, I'm going to give you a potted history of this man's bio, because if I read the full list, it would actually take up the whole 15 minutes that he has to talk to us this morning. Anthony is the immediate past CEO and current co-chair of the Washington, D.C. based National Centre of Education and the Economy. He was the inaugural chair of the Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership. He is also the Deputy Chancellor of Swinburne University in Melbourne, Australia, Honorary Senior Fellow of the Graduate School of Education at the University of Melbourne. He is also the co-founder of the Global Education Leaders Partnership and was Foundation Board Chair of the Innovation Unit Limited out of England. And I was lucky enough to get to know Anthony in his role as Deputy Chair of the Education Council of Aotearoa, New Zealand. So welcome. And Morena, Anthony, thank you for joining us this morning, my friend. I am basically going to fire one question at you, and then I have a feeling I can probably sit down because I know how you roll, and I know you will have no trouble filling the time that you have allocated this morning. So, Anthony, when you read A Vision for Education in Aotearoa, New Zealand, through the lens of your work with education systems internationally, where do you see it sitting within the wider global conversation about the future of education? And which aspects feel particularly aligned with the direction leading jurisdictions are taking? And what do you think feels distinctly important for Aotearoa, New Zealand? So over to you, my friend, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Claire. And colleagues, it's wonderful to be with you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join you with the launch of this fantastic vision. And Claire, I should just say that having listened to Stephen and Claire and Rose and the way in which you positioned this report, it's a delight to feel the strength of this work joining a growing international chorus for the kind of shift in our learning system toward precisely the way in which, Claire, you have outlined a vision for education in New Zealand. And the delight, by the way, is that I'm recognising that I'm coming to you not so much across the ditch or the pond, but as I was taught from the West Island. So I do want to acknowledge our place in this region. And New Zealand is a remarkable place. And so to respond to your question, Claire, New Zealand continues to provide leadership in ways that perhaps Claire and Rose have indicated, namely that whatever might be a public-facing story at any particular moment in time, whatever might be the way in which the political or the public presents education, those who are engaged in the enterprise are living and working on an agenda that is captured so brilliantly by the vision. But they need that vision in order to advance that work and feel confident about that work. And I think another crucial point is what you've just said, Claire, that is that we should feel that this is a collective endeavour globally at the moment to ensure that the purpose of our learning systems are absolutely in the service of human development or human flourishing, which is the language that increasingly is being used. But let's just be clear. My first point would be that New Zealand remains a remarkable place, a bicultural, bilingual country that has provided such leadership to others, not just within the region, but globally, for its its values, its beliefs, its commitment to equity and excellence. And so I just want to make it clear. My first point is to say the New Zealand context, particularly the New Zealand culture, the New Zealand nation is regarded by so many as being an example of the kind of learning system that we need. I know that that's not the way in which many people might have the current debate around education in New Zealand, but I just want to make it clear that that is still the way in which many see New Zealand. And so therefore this vision of education is going to inspire not just those in New Zealand, but it's going to inspire and reinforce the way in which people see the direction of travel outside of New Zealand. Second point is, I think that the ambitions that Claire has outlined are superb. They're the why, the what, the how, the with whom of the way in which we think about our learning. And by the way, it's not just a vision, and I know that exactly, Claire, that's just what you're saying. It provides a call for action. It's an agenda for action. So it comes alive for those people who read this and they're going to be motivated and inspired by it. The third point I want to make is the purpose is so clear, articulated here. This really is about the whole person. And so many of us have been arguing that the way in which education has been positioned to serve particular purposes that might be a more prosperous economy, or certainly an education system that can build social cohesion, certainly an education system that can create well-being both at the individual and collective level. What this vision makes clear is it's all of those, that it is around human development. It is the development of the whole person. It is about human flourishing. And I think that language now is starting to become so common that we can use it as a serious call to action and people will understand what we mean. My fourth point is that this actually goes to how we want to think about the system. And clearly we do need to make sure that we're shifting the system in a way that people can appreciate that the most important relationship is at the local level. It's the learning ecosystem. It's the local governance. It's the family, young people and educators and all caregivers within the context of the local. That's not to deny the regional or the national, but the system is alive as it should be at the local level. So we just need to remember that when we have this conversation, it's not a conversation about top down, even though I understand entirely the politics of this as were explained by Stephen in his opening remarks. But let's be clear that we as educators appreciate that the learning system is very much a learning ecosystem at the local level, differentiated in order to meet the needs of all young people, their families, and obviously all of those that provide support in the educative process. My fifth point is the school. And if the unit of analysis ultimately is the school, but a school that's open to the community, that has porous boundaries, that works in partnership with others, that is actually a learning hub. It's not something which is confined. It is something which is open and is open to the whole of the community. There's so many different scenarios at the moment about what the school might become, and also then questions around learning environments, formal, non-formal, informal learning. All of those things need to be thought about in the context of how we see the learning environment of the school. A learning hub, not just another one of the providers in an increasing marketplace of providers, or not something where in fact we are seeing most of our work being outsourced to others, or where you just learn as you go, young people not necessarily feeling that they have a sense of place. So I think we've got to understand that this is in the kind of Greek language that many of us are increasingly wanting to invoke as we think about participative democracy. This is the agora. This is the civic centre. This is the place of cultural formation for young people. My sixth point is this is about the learner at the heart of this entire enterprise, exercising power, and I mean socialised power, that is co-creating. They are, as Claire said, They are the people who are undertaking the learning in partnership with others. Educators play a vital role, but this is a partnership. The work is being done by the learners. They're the ones that are producing the learning, the knowledge, the understanding, the skills, the dispositions. So I want to make sure the learner is central in the way that you've placed this, and increasingly at a point when they're in partnership with technology. And we can say a lot about an AI era, but if we use this well, that will enhance and enlarge the nature of their agency and all of our agencies in the way in which we go about this process. The seventh point, I love the fact that we're talking about reprofessionalising. This is a profession that needs to step up, and that's what this vision is demanding. I mean, I'm not saying that educators are not at the moment leading, they are leading, but this actually requires multiple levels of leadership. And it's not just leaders who are fully qualified educators. We need a more diversified workforce. We need allied professionals to work with us. But I do think that as a profession, we will need to take the lead on telling the story. What is this narrative? What is this vision? We're going to have to get out there and make that really clear. We have to lead the ecosystem that I've talked about. We certainly have to lead innovation, because there's a lot where we need to experiment, where we need to think seriously about alternative ways of working. And certainly I think we are building prototypes of what might be a new way of thinking about the nature of the learning environment, and certainly the way in which we go about curriculum assessment and pedagogy. And we have to lead for the future. We want all young people and all of us involved in the educative enterprise to be thinking about how we can anticipate the future and prepare ourselves and be adaptive. So it feels to me that the eighth point I want to bring into sharp relief is what you finish the vision with a call for a public, and I would say a political conversation, right? This is actually about how we take this vision that is so much about a clear purpose for human flourishing. And that means, we are talking about new levels of complex problem solving, new ways of thinking about ethical decision making, new ways of knowing and being in the world, of aesthetic awareness. This is actually a serious exercise in communicating what it is that we see as being the learning process for human development. And so we've got to show it. We've got to have young people at front and centre. We need to make sure we're clear about the metrics that we're using now for what we see as being a broader definition of success and excellence, what we are demanding in terms of equity. And that's not just distributional equity. That is equity that goes to the heart of the dignity of every young person, and the fact that their educative experience in our schooling environments is one that enlarges their lives, helps them to develop, gives them dignity, every single one of them. That is what ultimately equity is about. So my feeling is that AEC is doing a fantastic job. This is a way in which you can be a trusted convener in advancing this story. My final point is this, Claire, and then back to you. We've got the next release of the 2025 PISA results coming out in a week or so's time, a couple of weeks' time, on the 9th of September. It'll be the same story for many countries, and that is that there will not be the level of improvement in literacy, numeracy, and science that people would want. This, by the way, is a common experience. Don't allow this story to become a story about comparing New Zealand with the rest of the world, or New Zealand and Australia. All countries have actually been finding it very difficult to improve their results, to use that language, on those metrics. But just have a look at the whole report. And by the way, the reasons for that are multiple, and that's what the conversation should be about. Why is it that we are seeing levels of disengagement of young people? Why are we seeing lower levels of well-being? Why is there a disconnect that's taking place in the way in which young people feel about the learning process? That's the conversation. What would you need to do about all of those factors that mean that we are concerned about levels of achievement? What you need is a vision of education that's been outlined here. That's what you need. And you need to make sure that when we're having this conversation, look at the whole report, because this is also a report on a different level of metrics. It's around, if you like, in many ways, the well-being of young people. All of the elements that Claire talks about in the curriculum that we want, all of the competencies, all of the OECD's 2030 and now 2040 education and skills, the learning compass, that's what we want. So just remember that. And the other thing, I think as we go into September, we've got a gathering of the UN General Assembly in New York, as we do every year in September. We have a major education house now that actually brings people together from globally, and we'll all be having this conversation. And I'll be putting on the table of a group of us that come across something like 20, 30 countries. I'll put this vision on the table alongside many other visions, because this is the conversation that we are having globally. This is the conversation that you want to have in New Zealand. This is definitely the conversation we want to have in Australia. This is our opportunity to be serious about nation building. We need education in order to learn our way out of the multiple problems and crises we have into human flourishing. So this report is superb and brilliantly timed.
First and foremost, thank you so much, Anthony, for your insights. You are, I always think of him as a benevolent overlord of education. He is everywhere and nowhere, all at the same time. You'd be hard pushed to find someone who has such a diverse global perspective on what is happening in education. So your insights are absolutely invaluable. And we are actually going to ask you to hang on the line, because we are going to have an opportunity in a moment for a couple of questions. I didn't know that, Claire, you're going to be fired at as well. So there might be questions from the audience for Claire and or Anthony that you'd like to share. But just before we get to that bit, I did also just want to say a bit of a couple of extra thank yous. First of all, they're going to cringe when I do this. Can I please have all of the action group of Aotearoa Educators Collective who are present today stand up? Because the reason I want to do this is that Aotearoa Educators Collective, as you well know, is absolutely run by volunteers. And volunteers who are full-time school leaders, full-time academics, full-time retired people that do a mixture of things. But actually the service they do, I think, to Aotearoa education is absolutely invaluable. And I would just like to have them acknowledged as well. Yes, stand up, Frances. Frances is also one of the best trollers online that you could ever find. If you need her service, just tap her. But just a huge thank you to the entire Aotearoa Educator Collective team. We are all working on it 24/7, and thank you to all of our peak body friends who feed into the work and the conversations. It is well and truly a collective. I just also wanted to take a rather indulgent moment to give this thank you gift to Claire. This is something that is from my friends over at Project Gender. So if you don't follow Project Gender, I encourage you to do so. But Claire, I want you to come up and have a look at what is in this bag, because I love it, and I think everyone in this room also needs one. It's actually a quote from our friend Dame Marilyn Waring, and I think it is absolutely words that we should all live by. Be a nerd and be a nuisance. It's what our education system needs. I'm going to hand over to Stephen now for a bit of Q&A with our learned friends.
Excellent. Thank you, Claire. And Claire broke the first rule of AEC Action Group Club. Don't mention you're in the AEC Action Group. It's like Fight Club. Now that we're outed. So look, we have a few moments just to get some questions from the floor. So if you have a burning question, I'm looking around, and I'm going to do something that teachers do very well, and that is to allow for wait time. Brilliant, we got a couple. Let's go over this way, and I'm going to have to run because we need the microphone for the live streaming.
Kia ora. I would also like to talk all Claire's words and thank our amazing people online and present. My question is, where are our politicians today in this room? Education is too frequently used as a way to evolve the mindset of New Zealanders, evolve our identity, and it's done by stealth. I feel that just this week, with the news of finance being taught in schools, because we can't leave this up to parents, schools are having this put down to them as their responsibility as New Zealand struggles to understand what its identity is. And I just wish our paid politicians responsible for education were in this room.
Brilliant, thank you. That's a really easy one to answer. They were invited. And we are continually having conversations. While I'm heading to another question, Anthony, one for you. As you look around the world and you've seen different reforms that have been put in place, what's changing? Where are people heading back to? Because from our position in this neck of the woods, it seems like we are England 10 years ago, starting that journey. Have you got any comment about where it's working well, where everything has been thought about in the long term?
Stephen, I think that marries with the comment about the nature of the political discourse. I think we've got to remember that there might be a dominant narrative that we see in the political context and in the public, particularly through media, that suggests that we are narrowing the way in which we think about education, that we're applying a particular interpretation of the learning sciences, that we are somehow now in a contest between a knowledge-rich curriculum and the way in which many of us think about the importance of a problem-based approach. The difficulty is that these are multiple narratives, but one is getting prominence by virtue of the way in which communication takes place and the way in which the political environment operates. What I'm seeing in all countries is multiple stories, and if we could avoid the contest that we have at the moment and think about the both and. I don't want to get into the story around this versus that, and if I look at those places that have managed to avoid that, often within our Scandinavian friends, the Baltic Nordics, or within a context of a small state nation like Singapore, or you think about some of the discourse that's going on within some of the provinces in Canada, then you do get the human flourishing story as strongly as you get a concern about foundational literacies. But note that I'm actually using a language that is meant to be inclusive. This is not something where, in fact, we would want to allow the narrative to flow in a way that says this is what learning is about and this is what learning is not about. That is a real problem for us. And I think what I'm seeing in countries that are being successful in the way in which they think about equity and excellence and efficiency is they are able, and by the way, this includes many in what we might call the global south, where innovation is alive and well. So we should just be clear about where the action's taking place. But you've got to get involved in the professional, public and political game. There's no point in thinking that we can just assert this and hope that somehow those who have got particular forms of power are then going to be persuaded. What we have to do is actually convince, inform and educate. From my point of view, politicians need to remember that they are representatives of local constituencies and they should be responsive to what you see as being representative democracy, increasingly participative democracy. I want them to feel that they will be our advocates from the local, from families, young people, and our profession. They need to be advocates for policies that are enabling. I don't want, and we don't see in the successful jurisdictions at the moment, a top-down view of the world. We see an ecosystemic view of the world where in fact government is the enabler, the broker, not the regulator, not the legislator. We need to shift that discourse. And our responsibility is to make sure that we advance that and we educate people accordingly.
Rapturous applause. And also thank you for using the term learning sciences. That's quite refreshing for us in the room here. I'm at the back of the room, always a worry when we head to the back of the room for a question. So here we go.
Good luck. Kia ora tātou, ngā mihi nui. David Cook from QPEC. I just want to make a comment rather than a critical question. Hello, Claire. And that is the thought of reprofessionalising teachers. I think equally it's very important to reprofessionalise various institutions. So I'm just going to focus on one for a moment. And I'm thinking of the polytechs, where I think for the last decade there's been a systematic process of trying to turn polytechs into institutions which will just carry out other people's ideas, in which teachers, the academic staff, simply become conveyors of knowledge and information. And I think it's happening in a sort of, not surreptitious, but a very engaging way of saying, well, people need to learn on the job, learning on the job. It's become a catchphrase now, and it's a way of siphoning resources away from the polytechs so that those who are in the job, the tradies, etc., and which I don't use pejoratively, but where those people are apparently assuming the task of teaching, and it is undermining because the polytechs, because a whole lot of resources, including money, are going to other institutions. It's not just happening in the polytechs, I think it's happening elsewhere, but I think there is a really serious issue here where we've got to grab back the importance of the polytech as an institution, as a teaching institution, which also includes reprofessionalising the teachers. So that's my plea. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, wave at me. Oh, I'm trying to go, which is the quickest way? I don't know how I'm going to work that out. I might need to do some knowledge assessment to work out how quick I need to get here. Here we go.
Kia ora. Ko Tara Solomon toku ingoa. I'm from Kaitiaki Kindergartens. And my question is around, I suppose, we talk about the bicultural curriculum, and in early childhood we have Te Whāraki, which could this be the blueprint that weaves together all of our education systems, so from birth throughout life, rather than there being silos, and to become a blueprint that actually weaves together learning, agency, relationships, bicultural tatiti. Is that something, a starting point that we could start to build on? And I also wanted to say, though, thank you for bringing us together, because this space and having this conversation and how important, but yeah, that it could be a blueprint. Is that a possibility?
I'll run this down to Claire.
Yes. I think my answer to that would be, I think this is a vision that is trying to, go across the thing, right? I think for too long there's this, they seem to pit people against each other, right? Like early childhood's against primary school and primary school's against secondary school, and we're all kind of, and it's like, actually, we're all in the children, again, centering the child. And that child moves through these different, and they've been organised in these different institutional kind of sector structures, but actually the core, what we're all about, is the same thing across those things. So absolutely, building better transition, better connection, coherence through all of the facets and aspects of education is really important. And Te Whāraki is a gorgeous kind of start point for a lot of that work. And I know that was very much in my previous role, when we were trying to do that with Te Mataiho, was very much looking at where Te Whāraki had gone and how we would continue that and have that lovely continuity. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Look, I'm looking around and I'm looking at my watch, and I am 50 seconds over time. But Donal, just because it's you, mate, I'm coming up to give you a question.
Donal McLean, tōku ingoa. So I'm a principal in a school, and we'll be talking with Sarah a bit later on around play. But I had a good conversation with Rose earlier on, and I'd really appreciate if Rose was able to talk a little bit about wriggle room, because as a principal, trying to get these ideas socialised in your staff and in your school, which I'm trying to do, and I'd be interested in that concept being spread a little bit wider.
Put me on the spot. And I realise that we're out of time, so I'll be very brief. Actually, Cheryl, sitting over there, could speak to this. Cheryl, often a principal of Selwyn College, invited me to come and talk to her staff earlier in the year. I'm a bit reluctant to talk to a whole staff room because, well, you know what it's like. You reach some people and there are the people who sit at the back, and it can be a bit of a waste of time. But we had a marvellous dynamic conversation, and what she asked me to do was to talk about how they could keep hope and innovation and creativity alive in the school and hold on to their local curriculum in the face of the deluge of change. So, well, I couldn't give them one answer to that question because that's a really complex question, right? And what you have to do is lift people's vision and give them hope that they can do it. So I said straight up, I can't tell you how to do this, but I called my talk Finding Your Wriggle Room. And we haven't got time now to go into the approach that I used. But yeah, maybe I'll write something about that for the AEC's blog. Cheryl, I don't know. Sorry, I know we're out of time, but I kind of feel like, no, she's saying no. Yeah. I am told that the strategy has got legs, and so I'm going to do some more. I've also had another experience where it didn't work quite so well, and I'm learning from that and working on it. But I think it is really important that we lift up out of the minutiae, and actually, if we passionately believe in what ought to be, then we have to find a way to hold on to that and not let ourselves be battered by the short term, which takes me back to what I said at the start and what all of us believe, because we're here in the room, right, about the importance of having a strong vision and holding on to it. And what Claire's report has given us is a lot of the authority that sits underneath that says across the whole vast swathes of education research, this is strongly supported by the researchers and the theoretical people. What I meant to say at the start, so it's a nice opportunity for me to say it now, is that Claire read swathes and swathes of research, and some of it is footnoted in the report, but it had to be readable, right? So just understand that what is there from the formal research is the tip of the iceberg, but it does support this vision very strongly. And it's so important to have it and hold on to it. And hey, look for your wriggle room.
So important, that word hope. I think, if I recall correctly, Dean Fink, an Australian, so I can't believe I'm quoting an Australian, but he said, ours is a hope profession. And every child that walks through the school gate is our hope for the future. So that's something that gives us that wriggle room, I think. Tony, would you like to say, look, since Rose got up here, is there any final remark that you'd like to leave us with?
No, just the delight of being able to join you. As Claire indicated, we've been colleagues and friends for many years, and I feel like I've had a particularly fortunate opportunity to feel close to New Zealand and have been inspired by the fact that you continue to be absolutely committed to the kind of shift in our learning system that's outlined in this vision. So delighted to be able to join you, and wonderful piece of work, and I will, along with others, be using every opportunity to promote it, because we are seriously able to learn from each other at a time that's crucial. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. A big thank you to To Tony, huge round of applause. He's overseas, he can't hear you. Also, a big thank you to Claire and to Rose for being here in person today. We really appreciate the effort that you've put in to be here for such what appears to be such a short amount of time, but a really, hopefully, important amount of time. And again, the action group that sits in beside the AEC collective, there are a heap of people in the collective, and I'm continually amazed at when something happens and we need comment, there are 30, 40 people in the back channels just eagerly putting their 2 cents in and coming out with things. We underestimate the administrative and brain power work of Liam Rutherford. So thank you, Liam, for all of your work in the background. We do appreciate it. And he was standing up, now he's sitting down. So I just want to reiterate about this report. This is the start. It is not a one-off report that will sit on the shelf. And really it's going to force every parent, academic, teacher and school leader, it forces us to already acknowledge the answer. Do we want children who can pass a test or adults who have the knowledge and capability to actually flourish? So here's what's happening next. Over the coming 12 to 24 months, the Aotearoa Educators Collective is committing to publishing a series of policy discussion papers across key areas of the system, working alongside educators and academics. That includes curriculum, initial teacher education, resourcing, kaupapa Māori. These will be done by experts from the sector. They will be well thought out, but they will be short and punchy, just enough to get people talking. We're calling on policymakers, community leaders, and the public to use this vision as a practical anchor point, something stable to return to, rather than starting from scratch every time the wind changes. So Claire mentioned the QR code. If you didn't get a chance to scan the QR code, go to the Aotearoa Educators Collective website. We also have merch. For the younger people in the room, we've got some bus and merch here for you, which is, my kids are now cringing somewhere in Auckland. It's a disturbance in the force. So we have a takeaway poster for you, and take them away, put them up somewhere, share them. So finally, I think there is a discussion. Yes, Claire is hosting a discussion tonight. Claire Squared. Claire Squared online tonight in the Substack Live. Fantastic. Get online 7:30. I missed Ted Lasso yesterday, so I'm probably that's gonna be in my Ted Lasso time. So no, I'll try and make it. Neil Postman once wrote that children are the living messages we send to a time that we will not see. We hope that this report helps to shape those messages. Thank you all for coming today. Kia tautaranga Māori e, kia hore te marino, kia whakapapapau namu te moana, kia tere te karohirohi I mua I te huarahi. Thank you all. Travel safe. And stick around for a little while if you want to and have a chat to people.